So, welcome back to a live Lords of Thunder podcast. I'm here with AlphaOmegaSin.
Hi.
And I am Johnny Millenium of the Happy Console Gamer Show.
I'm so happy.
I'm so motherfucking happy. I'm so happy we're in Portland and we finally get to do something that we can never normally do because we're never in the same city.
All so fucking far away.
Yeah.
But thanks to Skype.
Skype we can do, and we have been doing the Lords of Thunder podcast. And we thought what we'd do is do a live Lords of Thunder podcast and also put it up onto iTunes as well. So if any of you guys have not seen or heard, you wouldn't see it, you just see it online, the Lords of Thunder podcast, check it out on iTunes.
And Final Bosses.
And number one, Final Bosses. That's where it launches from. So, yeah, well, I thought what we'd talk about today, we went to a park to figure it out. We're like, let's go for a walk and figure this out.
And we had to fight off an entire barrage of squirrels that were hungry for our nuts, and we didn't want to deal with any of that shit. They were everywhere, just scurrying about, and we were like, fuck these little bastards. Sat down and then came up with the idea of Nintendo, the big N. Get in or get out.
So what we thought we'd do is just talk about our experiences with Nintendo, first experiencing it, all the way to now, to rumors of the NX and all that. So it's going to be a long episode. It's going to be like an hour long. So
this is one of those things that it could go on to multi-episodes.
Yeah.
Just because it's Nintendo. When you think of video games, Nintendo, whether you like them or not, Nintendo comes up all the time. It's just one of those companies. It's kind of hard not to recognize them.
Yeah, and like take us in the sense of, when was the very first time that you discovered Nintendo? Like, how old were you? What was your first machine?
Let's see, 1989. That I remember. 1989, and I was 4 at the time. Getting to have keep in mind, this was very first system I ever got to have. And this, for anybody out there that's watching this, listening to this, it's a mind-blowing matter because video games weren't like how they are now. It's on every device, refrigerators, tablets.
There's
phones,
so many video games now.
Well, it's sensory overload. It's insane. But back then, I had never had anything like that. And my parents went and got the Nintendo Entertainment System, and for everybody across the pond, the Famicom. Yeah. And whenever it was hooked up, they hooked up the system and then just left. And to me, it looked like a VCR. So I put 2 and 2 together, take this little plastic thing, put it inside that large plastic thing, and play the game. Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt being the pack-in game. Yeah. I went and launched that and had no idea what to do. I picked up the controller and I'm looking at it. It's wired right in. And hit the button, and the little guy, Mario, jumps. And just from that point forward, it's like, I am God! And it's like, I made him jump! Oh, fuck yes! I did it! I did it! Oh, God! I made him move! And then I died to the Goomba.
I was just about to say, that was my first experience with Mario, too. I'm like, wow, look at this. I just went down a hole. Yeah. I suck at this. And the same thing is, it was 1987 for me. I went over to a friend's place, and I went in there, and he's like, oh, you want to play Nintendo? And I'm like, what's Nintendo?
Oh, what's that?
I know that sounds stupid, and I said it a few times on the show, but the word was just so weird. Like, Nintendo, I couldn't even pronounce it. I'm like, I had to say it a few times, and there was this gray box there, and I'm like, this is like weird. I don't know what it is. And he put in Kung Fu, and I was like, the first time I'd seen like an arcade version at home that looked as good as the arcade. I was like, oh my God, you can play this at home, and this exists, and you're playing it, and damn you, I'm super jealous. I was like, I want one too, but back then, I wasn't into gaming the way I was now, so I kind of let some time go on. I didn't go, Mom and Dad, give me a Nintendo, no. I just kind of let it go. I wanted one, but I wasn't, hounding them too much. And then one day, I went and played hockey back then, and we we just got off a game, and my dad's like, oh, I'll take your bag off you and I'll put it in the car. And I'm like, oh, no, I got my bag. And he's like, no, please let me in. I was like, what the fuck are you arguing with me about my bag? Like, why do you want to do this? I'm doing the work here.
Do you want to go, bro?
Yeah.
Do you want to
go? And he opened up, he's like, fine. And he opens up the trunk, and it was just like one of those magical childhood memories. He opens it up, and there's a Nintendo, and it came with Hogan's Alley. And I was just like,
wait, that was the pack-in?
Yeah, that's what came with it. That's the game that I got. It was really weird.
I've never seen that.
It was like I that is my memory because I came home and that's the only game I had. I had Hogan's Alley. I was like, or I bored Hogan's Alley. Maybe somebody can let me know about that. It is 1987 we're talking about. So I just remember that I could have sworn Hogan's Alley came with it. That's my memory of it. So I've never researched it past a memory.
The trunk opens up, the golden light comes out, and then it's like, dun, 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 dun,
yeah.
And you're like, dun, 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 hold it up in victory.
I don't know if I had Hogan's Alley or something like that. I'm going to check into that because that's fascinating to me. Because I always look for boxes. I'm like, is that on there? And I've never kind of seen it. But I went home and I played, and all I played was Hogan's Alley. I didn't have Mario. It wasn't until I went down the street and I was playing at a friend's place. I'm like, holy shit, like there's a game with secrets and all of that. It really ushered in, like, obviously there was the Atari and the ColecoVision, but that stuff never did it for me the way the Nintendo did. Yeah. It was because of, I think, the arcade, and of course, we had Donkey Kong and ColecoVision and all that stuff.
When you said that you got to play Kung Fu, did you know about Kung Fu in the arcade and play previously?
Yeah, I'd seen it. I'd seen it in like local like 7-Elevens and things like that. Like that's my memories of it. And we're also going to Chuck E. Cheese. Back then you'd go and you'd play that, but you're like, these were arcade machines. You can play this at home. It's like, oh wait, there's a version of this at home. So it was kind of fascinating, and it was the Nintendo that really got me into it all. And that's something that,
I mean, for us throughout the 80s and 90s. And just briefly throughout the 2000s, it was common to see arcade ports of many different games or certain types of conversions. And nowadays, you don't have that at all. The most that you're going to get is maybe a PC or a console port or a handheld port, and that's really about it. Yeah. But never arcade ports. That's something I kind of miss.
Yeah, I know where you go to the arcade and see a game that was better than what you get at home. That was always so exciting, and then the Dreamcast was when the first time I was like, wait, it's really here.
Yeah.
That's like, I just played Power Stone, and I'm playing Power Stone at home on the Dreamcast.
And it looked exactly like it.
It was exactly
it. It was like, holy shit, this is what we've been. Oh, and if you had a Neo Geo.
Oh, and a Neo Geo, of course, as well.
But those are companies for a different day. And
we can get to that. So we had these initial experiences, and you were playing a lot of games on your NES back then, boring them and stuff like that. And I borrowed most of my games and traded and stuff like that. I
always found that to be probably one of the coolest social aspects of it. It was always funny whenever there was older people that would talk about it. They'd be like, oh, them Nintendo tapes. And they'd call them tapes, which always amused the shit out of me because they're totally not tapes. But the idea of, it's that Nintendo tape. And having all the games like stacks of cartridges, go down to your friend's house, and then they're borrowing, and it's like a swap meet.
Yeah.
And you're like all in grade school, but I'm like, oh, you let me borrow Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'll let you borrow Paperboy. I'm like, okay, and I'm gonna go and take Narc home. Okay, yeah, you go and do that. And it's just like craziness, but it was, I always enjoyed that about gaming.
No, and that was the first kind of, that's how you socialize before the internet and downloading games and all that. So that's how you do it. And also because you were a kid, you didn't have a lot of money, so that was the only way to do it.
Yeah, and renting games was also big back then. Going into whatever video rental store, and you see all the Nintendo boxes, and you're picking them up and turning them around unless you were subscribed to Get the Power, Nintendo Power.
Oh yeah, don't get me started about my friend Andrew had that fucking thing. That drove me nuts. But I was playing it and I loved it. It was just a religious experience for me. It really made me become a hardcore gamer. Like before then, I'd seen it in television, and I'm not knocking any of those, but it hadn't really done it for me. It was like, oh, that's cool. There's Donkey Kong on there or something. That's cool. But it wasn't until I saw like Kung Fu, and then I started playing like RPGs and Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior, and my god,
I think what it is, I feel the same way because I always felt that those systems, despite the fact I can pick up a ColecoVision, have a lot of fun. And I'm not talking about like the PC version or anything, like the actual like consoleized version with that ridiculous controller, but I like those systems, and they're very arcadey. But that's about it. I preferred like NES and Master System and up because they had a lot more depth to them.
Yeah, they offered more. You're right, more depth. Like the first time I can't talk about the same Master System. Like Phantasy Star, the game seemed more complex. Yeah. And getting Dungeons and Dragons.
The first
and all
time you go into a dungeon in Phantasy Star, you're like, holy mother of fuck! I can't believe this.
And they're still good to today, which is even weirder. So like the Nintendo kind of like, it was like Mario that brought me in, but it was all these other games that showed me how much more there can be for gaming. There can be RPGs, action RPG. You know, there's so many levels, platformers. I mean, puzzle games. My mind was blown. I was introduced to all these incredible things: racing games, sports games.
And every the controller at the time was revolutionary. And most people, we all take the D-pad for granted.
Oh yeah.
But Nintendo owned that shit.
Yeah, they did, and I was terrible. I have, you know, I'm not upset or embarrassed or anything like that to admit I was terrible when I first played the Nintendo. You know what I mean? I was really I just couldn't get with the D-pad. You'd never done anything like that, so it was a brand new experience.
So
it really was.
So you couldn't wrap your head around doing that? Like, was it because you needed a joystick?
You know what? That's a good point. It's like, yeah, I'm just using my thumb. Like
all of a sudden you're not rocking your wrist and you're
you know, like, you know, working two joysticks and
working two joysticks and just getting it all over the place.
Like, I'm controlling this one and I'm not getting into anything else.
Oh man, all these boards, all over the place.
Yeah,
all those bits.
But then I'm just using my thumb. It's kind of funny to control a game and then using a thumb and then buttons at the same time. I was never good at Donkey Kong, and I was never good at Pac-Man. I was never good at any of those games. Pong, I could kind of get. Tank, I wasn't bad on Atari, but so I kind of, the NES opened my mind to all these things, and it was RPGs that was like, whoa. Final Fantasy, when I first played that, Jesus.
I was going to say, for you, on the NES, because that was the first experience for both of us, and for probably a lot of people that might be watching this, what were the standout titles that just, I mean, absolutely captivated the living shit out of you and made you love the Nintendo?
One of the earlier titles, and you probably say the same, Zelda 1, Zelda 2, Super Mario 3, Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior 1 to 4, Crystallis. I'm just thinking of all the games. Rygar for action games. I mean, I'm thinking in my mind of every... Oh, what is this silly little game? Oh.
What's that?
Yeah, the game that drove me mental.
Ninja Gaiden?
Yeah, Gaiden.
And until we got to see the wizard and be like, oh, fuck, we've been saying it wrong.
Oh, they were saying it wrong. We were saying it right. There's always that argument. Gradius? You know, there's always a bit of that. So those are some games for me. Anything like...
Well, let's see. Very similar list to add to it. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. DuckTales, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Castlevania, Mega Man.
Thank you for all those other ones. Yeah,
those games, all the ones that you had said, like, there were so many titles and so many franchises that started.
It's unbelievable.
On NES. We're talking about franchise. We're going to be getting Final Fantasy 15 at some point.
15?
Yeah. And where did it start? On Nintendo.
Yeah.
That was the platform.
1990, I stopped in Reno on the way home, and I was like, oh my god, there's one copy of Final Fantasy. I was reading about this in my friend's Nintendo Power. And I picked it up, and I read the instructions all the way home. Little did I know that it would be all these years later, and I'd be playing number 15. Or playing a demo of 15 that I downloaded.
Weird. Most people probably didn't even think it'd make it that far.
Yeah.
Like, a lot franchises, you know...
Fantasy, it's the last one. That's so funny, eh? Yeah.
Well, for them, you know, whenever they had said that, it was our last shot at trying to be successful, and they went out with a bang and then just rode that star right into the sky, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
But the NES just... It did so many damn things right, and it became like a bigger deal. You know, you got to see, like, mention the wizard, something like Ghostbusters 2, for example. You know, they have the fucking NES Advantage arcade stick when they're controlling Lady Liberty, walking around with that.
Yeah.
You know, and like Nintendo itself actually became a name that was synonymous with games. Like, oh, I'm gonna go play Nintendo. Everybody knew what the fuck you meant.
Yeah.
You know, you can't actually say that about a lot of things. Nowadays, you can say, I'm going to go play PlayStation and Xbox, but Nintendo is one of those earliest, you know, ideas of, hey, this name is kind of like, you know, Q-tips, obviously, like cotton swabs.
Yeah.
The name becomes synonymous with what it is, a video game console. That's amazing.
And especially a Japanese console.
Yeah.
I thought it was the Nintendo. Dude. Everybody takes it for granted now. Oh, I know what that was. But I told you the first time I heard it, I was like, what the fuck is that?
Well, and it was interesting because they came in, and everybody knows that Nintendo basically saved the game market from the video game crash. And they were marketing it initially as a toy because they had Rob the Robot with it. They had the little NES zapper. And the stuff that they put in it, you didn't traditionally see with a system. You know, they'd have pack-ins and stuff, but nothing like that.
Yeah.
Now, Rob the Robot is kind of viewed as, you know, a failed attempt.
Novelty item type of, but novelty kind of thing. Yeah.
Back then, they were like, no, this is a great fucking idea because people will think that it's something else, but it's more. And they didn't call it a game console. They called it the Nintendo Entertainment System. Yeah. Its name alone meant, oh yeah, it's even bigger and better than all the other shit that you've seen, and it was in a lot of ways.
It fucking was, and also a machine like that getting Nintendo Power, which was golden. Where you would, before the internet, you'd read about all the games that were coming out months down the road in Nintendo Power.
Did you have a subscription?
Fuck no. As I said, my friend Andrew down the street, his parents had one.
You just looked so disgusted. You were like, fuck no! Show us on the doll, Johnny. Where did Nintendo Power go into?
You know what's funny? I still look at Nintendo Powers now, and I'm like, God, these are such beautifully put together magazines. And they were incredibly nostalgic, but at the time they were incredibly awesome. Like the information that they had in there, like secrets and how to beat the games. Like you couldn't, you know, a Nintendo. Oh, we gotta talk about also the number for Nintendo, the hotline. So back then, before the internet, so here a great example. My friend Andrew, lends me Castlevania 2, and I was like, "Oh, fucking great! This is a great game." And I got to this part where I didn't know what to do in the game anymore. I'd gone through everything, and I was like, and I had tons of time as a kid.
Everybody got stuck in Castlevania 2. You know, that shit's just so poorly fucking.
And so who could have figured this out? So it was my friend Andrew said who lent it to me, and I phoned him up and I'm like, dude, what the fuck do I do? He starts laughing, and I'm like, what are you laughing at? He goes, I had to phone the Nintendo hotline because I didn't know what to do. And there's a point in the game where this is crazy, where you walk to this kind of like a wall, kind of cliff, and you need to kneel down and use like a red crystal.
A little tornado comes.
I mean, who would even think to do that? Yeah. And I had done everything in the game. I would have never figured that out in a lifetime if there was no information on that.
You get in the game that are supposed to like point you in the direction. Don't. It's like finding riddles for riddles.
That was all the Nintendo. That was all Nintendo and Zelda back then. You know, the Eastmost Peninsula is the secret. I was like, what? You know, what does that mean? You know, it was very vague and strange.
See, I like that you mentioned the layout of Nintendo Power Magazine. Anybody out there that, if for whatever reason you never had the opportunity to pick up one of those magazines, by all means, find scans online or find the actual physical magazines and look at it, because that was something that you didn't see a lot back then. They had a lot of hand-drawn art, a lot of official art that they would scatter throughout it. Very colorful pages. Yeah. You know, the frames would be like this big, like a couple pictures here. Let's put a real big one up here and then put the text going all around it, and it looked great. It was something like you wanted to look through and also look at, because visually, this looks fucking great aesthetically from a design standpoint.
Yeah.
And then they had like the comics inside of it. They had
that was great stuff.
The iron-on T-shirt shit, the 3D glasses, the little Starfox ship that you could go and put together. Yeah. They had all this different stuff, and the posters. Oh, fuck, the posters were so cool. The idea that you could get these big fold-out posters and put them up on your wall, which aren't nearly as cool as having, like, fucking tits and ass all over the wall, and then metal posters like me, but it was still really neat to have some shit like that. Something of, you know, Samus all decked out in her suit. I'm like, that's fucking
That was
cool,
awesome.
Man.
I remember looking through at Dragon Warrior, and they had all this custom artwork. And it was really well drawn and very imaginative and very inspiring. I was inspired by the magazines. I was excited about the games. I was inspired by the artwork and the potential of all these other, Japanese games that were coming out and stuff like that. And that's another thing I was getting into Japanese animation, so I was really into all this Japanese RPG stuff and Japanese gaming, like Mega Man and stuff. It was something I was embracing into culture.
Japan was fucking rocking.
They were ahead of the game back then.
The one thing that's also kind of badass, Nintendo was like a big ass deal, but it was also neat to see that they had their own magazine. Video game magazines weren't extremely common.
No.
You can go back to the earliest days, of like Nintendo Power and Electronic Gaming Monthly and all those other magazines, and depending on like what part of the country you're in, you had different magazines.
Yeah.
And then different publishing companies who'd put out similar versions. But Nintendo was one of the earliest adopters of such
of a dedicated magazine, because back then it was all PC magazines with a little bit of information on some, like maybe on Nintendo, but very, very rare. Yeah. Mostly PC stuff. But that was, like, put it this way, nobody remembers this. Like, say in Vancouver, where I grew up, to get to go and buy a Nintendo game, there was no EB Games, there was no GameStops, there's nothing like that. I had to go to a PC store that sold hardware, and they would have a selection of Nintendo games, and that's where I get my Nintendo games. People forget that stuff.
So you didn't have like toy stores that sold them?
They had the Toys R Us.
Yeah.
That was it. But like for like it like you couldn't get them at like most places. You had to go to like, oh, if I wanted this game, I had to go to this PC store I had. Yeah. It was kind of like weird, but I'm just trying to explain who was selling it and how unusual it was, because it hadn't broadened the market yet. It was in Toys R Us a couple of years later, but in the early years of the Nintendo, like we're talking 87 and 88, it hadn't quite got there yet. You know what I mean? In some stores, yes, but not in Canada, at least, I can say.
It's way worse if you're trying to get one of those games that's from, like, a relatively niche company.
Oh, Christ.
That, a lot of people don't know about. So then you're having to go and call up store to store, then drive all over East Kabumfuck to go and find...
Well, I had my friend Andrew on the show, and he was talking about it, that back then, you guys were lucky you get a whole bunch of games in the States right on release date, but we had to wait months, if not, like, 4 to 5 months. And it was really unusual to be able to get a game. We always used to have to go across the border to get games. That was a big thing to do, to be able to get the latest games.
Did you ever do that?
Of course, yeah. For the Genesis especially. I had to go over there and get my Revenge of Shinobi, Alex Kidd, all that kind of stuff.
Totally fucking worth it, in my opinion, by the way.
Oh, holy shit. You know what's so funny? I was a big Alex Kidd guy, and I was like, oh yeah, Shinobi, I'll get the latest Revenge of Shinobi, cool. I didn't know how good it was going to be. But anyways, we can get on a tangent. You know what I mean?
Don't worry. It'll be another topic. We
have
too many damn topics.
We'll do an episode on the Genesis one.
By the way, this is a weekly show. So there is always that. So on Final Bosses, always know that we're going to have this show weekly.
Yeah, and you can just download it through iTunes as well and stuff like that. So, so...
let's see. So 8-bit. So we got a lot of 8-bit Nintendo, and Nintendo was fucking rocking everything that they had. Unless you were picking up lots of LJN games, then you were just dealing with severe disappointment.
Yeah. But even back then, even the shitty games, I kind of was like, I think it's me. I didn't blame the game back then. I was blaming me. So when I was playing Roger Rabbit back then, and I couldn't get with the program, I said, I'm a dummy.
Dude, you know what's fucked up about that, though? Yeah. Is that game, and there's one other one, but that's actually made by Rare.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to think about. Rare, who became one of the biggest fucking companies for Nintendo, was also making LJN properties based off of movie licenses. But let's see. So, in segue from 8-bit into 16-bit.
Wow, what a I remember I was on vacation with my parents and I bought a video game magazine, and it had a shot, and it's never been out since, of what the Super Nintendo was going to look like. And it had a picture of like Mario swimming underwater, and I was just like, holy cow, like these graphics, they look unreal. And I couldn't believe that this was going to be the next generation system, and whoa. And when was the first time that you saw, like, what was your first thing of like, there's a Super Nintendo coming out?
It was weird because I'd already been playing 16-bit stuff thanks to the Genesis.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's fucking Sega does what Nintendo don't. The Genesis is just one of the most amazing things ever. And when I got to find out, thanks to video game magazines, because I was reading a lot, I admittedly always ended up reading the third-party magazines like EGM, a lot more than Nintendo Power. I know heresy, on a Nintendo.
But EGM was awesome, and Game Fan magazine.
Yeah. Game Fan is just
the gold, and we love Game Fan. We'll give them that moment.
And we could plug your video because.
Oh yeah, we did an episode on Game Fan magazine years ago. One of the best video game magazines of all time. I don't give a fuck.
I hope that I find some, because I need to get more.
Let's have a look. We're at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, so we're going to take off after this and go have a look and see what's out there.
But with Super Nintendo, like the first time I had gotten to see it was they're making it, but there was like no screenshots or anything, just a list of games that they are potentially working on, and that was about it. And then the next thing that I knew, it was an actual like screenshot of the Super Famicom.
Yes.
And that's what I was thinking we were getting.
Yeah. Don't you wish? I love that.
Dude,
I love that system.
Super Famicom by far looks a million times better.
And in the prototype, this is what I was mentioning when I first saw the next generation Mario, was the controller. All the buttons were red. That was the initial prototype. That's what it looked exactly like a Super Famicom, but it had red buttons. So
that sounds fucking evil, like a Virtual Boy controller and shit.
But and then we got a chance to see the Super Famicom and like Final Fight. I remember seeing like Final Fight. I was like, oh my god, Final Fight is home, and it's that good looking. You know what I mean?
And it's not 2-player,
and it's minus Guy.
that kind of shit. But it's got the mighty Mike Hagar, who's
we love
one of the manliest, most badass characters in all of gaming.
Yeah,
he can pick up a phone booth.
Yeah,
he's wander around with it.
He's fucking awesome, but we didn't get Guy.
Yeah, but hey, got Final Fight Guy.
Yeah, and that's not worth a lot of money right now. $400-$500.
No, just a bajillion. But we can get rid of internal.
I saw that at Portland. I think last year at Portland, I was like, holy shit! I think it was like $500 to $600. I'm like, oh my god,
dude. So, Super Nintendo. We're going from 8-bit to 16-bit, and there was a lot of people the entire time that the NES was out. When you see the Sega Genesis, people just kept on saying, man, wouldn't that look cool if that was on Sega Genesis? Wouldn't that look cool if that was 16-bit? And that was always being rubbed in the face of Nintendo, was that they were, an entire, thing behind. So, for you, some of the 16-bit games, what would you say were, the must-haves that sold you on the system, On
the Super Nintendo?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's easy. That's absolutely easy. As soon as I saw Final Fight and ActRaiser. ActRaiser was like, oh my god, look at this. This is not an arcade game, but it looks like one is at home.
I'm always glad when somebody mentions ActRaiser.
Oh, fuck yeah. That's
some of the best fucking music ever.
Yeah. And that's Yuzo Koshiro as well. Wonderful. I gotta love that composer. He could do no wrong back then. He did Revenge of Shinobi, ActRaiser. This guy fucking owned everybody. But honestly, it was the...
I have, the Stage 1 theme song going through my head.
It's so good. So good. But I know it sounds like... It was Final Fight. What were some of the other games that were I don't think Link to the Past have been shown yet, but it was Super Mario World. That was the big one. It's oh my god. And so how it happened for me, this is a funny story too, is that my parents had always been like, give me a Sega Master System, and I'd be like, fuck you. I'd be like, oh, fuck me. And they'd like, hey, can I get a snow? And then one day, I don't know why.
I want to see that actually happen. Little Johnny Millenium runs up to his parents, please give me a system. Fuck you, kid. Fuck me, right?
Yes, fuck me. You're right. I should fuck myself. And so what ended up happening is a friend of mine, Trevor Holness, had gotten a Super Nintendo the weekend it came out.
Now, did he have to fuck himself to get it?
Well, probably. That's what all kids had to do back then. The greasy hand, and we're getting fucking
rubber fist and all.
Rubber fisting it. And so it was weird. I went to my parents and I said, hey, the Super Nintendo's just come out. I'd love to get it, because I was a kid who didn't want to. Boy, I sure would like that thing, stuff.
I'm totally not asking for it. I'm
just asking for it. And the weird thing is, my parents looked at me. They're like, "Yeah, we'll take you to go and get it." And I'm like, "Oh, well, he got it from Bella's Fair, which was it's a mall that's often in the States from us. It's not even that far away. It's about 20 half an hour drive. But you had to cross the border. I know, big deal." And my parents were like, "Yeah, we'll take you down there." I'm like, Who are you?
You start looking around okay,
who are you people?
Who's fucking with me? There's strings attached. What's going on? What do I have to do?
Yeah, I was like, just like that, and I didn't say anything. I was like, oh, awesome, and I just walked away.
That sounds awesome, and then you're just hoping there's no greased up fists. No.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Behind here, is there?
It's just don't change your minds. And yeah, it was so unbelievable. That Saturday, they took me down and they bought me. They're like, here you go. So we walked into the store. Pulling down Super Nintendo, they paid for it. I came home and I'm playing Super Mario World, and I'm like, holy fuck! And Super Mario World was just so wow. It's Mario Brothers was good, and Mario Brothers 2, Mario Brothers 3 were fucking unbelievable. Yeah. Gems to this day. Classics of all time. But this game it had upped the ante. The gameplay was more complex. There was a lot more to it. It's just, I know it sounds stupid, but it was the colors. It was the colors. It's look, that's really green, and that's a different shade of green.
It makes me think of there's a Sega Game Gear controller where he takes this fucking dead raccoon, hits himself in the head. He's like, whoa, the colors. wow.
Well, like, let's be honest with you. Like the original Nintendo. I mean, how many colors did it have? I can't even remember.
It's not a whole lot. I know
it's not
that
a lot.
It's color palettes.
I memorized them back then. That's what I'm trying to say.
It had the most colors out of it. Blue. That much I remember because of Mega Man.
Yeah.
Mega Man's the only reason I remember that. But it had a very limited color palette. It had limited sound channels.
Yeah, of course.
But it was old.
Yeah.
So naturally it was going to be like that. It was fucking leaps and bounds above everything else that we had seen to that point.
Yeah.
But whenever you see what the Super Nintendo was bringing in, and then like the custom chips that they were applying to individual cartridges to do
later on.
Yeah, like the Super Effects chip.
Yeah, FX chip. I was
like
the
the one that was on Mega Man X games. They had their own chips inside there. And there's just tons of stuff, but it was like fucking mind blowing. And Super Mario World, still to this day, just amazing.
Yeah.
And hell, Super Mario Maker, now we're making our own Super Mario World stages.
That's crazy. You told us we could do that back then. I'd be like, I passed down the floor. I would have.
Yeah. Just be like, booty had me like.
But yeah, I was so used to the Master System's color, the colors and the Nintendo's colors, that when I saw the Super Nintendo's colors, Super Famicom's colors, I was like, whoa, there's different shades of green, and there's multiple different shades of green. As dumb as that is, that was a big deal. I was like, I remember playing on the TV, and you went to Star World, and you were doing that stuff, and you're like,
dude, Star World.
Yeah.
You felt like you had just found like some unknown utopia.
Yeah. No,
holy shit.
It felt exciting. I know that sounds so dumb. Now people playing, they're like, that's pretty cool. But it's like, no.
Dude, they had so many cool secrets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they had all these alternate paths. Like, on this stage, if you go here and you go down there and you go to this different entrance, and it's like, oh man, you get to go through a different exit. Now you have a whole new stage to go to.
Yeah.
Like, in the actual map itself would start altering and changing with a new area. You were like, holy fuck, like you felt like Indiana Jones and shit, like finding stuff.
Yeah, no, it really was. I think, you know what, it was. I hate to use the term magic and wonder for a machine, but it really was magic and wonder. And I'm going to say that, and that's what's always hooked me, and that's why I'm a video game fan today, is that they got me back then. Oh, yeah. They got me in a net, and it's been hard for me to escape. No. Even though no matter what Nintendo has done, I still.
Oh no, you have to give props. You have to give props.
Yeah.
Here's the question, because I know that it was strange for me, but the first time that you picked up the controller and you saw shoulder buttons.
Oh yeah.
That shit was weird.
Yeah, it was like the amount of buttons. Mm-hmm. We're talking 8 buttons. It was like, wow.
So on NES, we have 2 face buttons.
Yeah.
Start and select. That was a lot, because Atari had
for us to try to learn back then. That was a lot.
So you're like, okay, so I got the D-pad and I got these. Okay, and there's still people who can pick it up and get confused. Like, wait, what do I do?
I press the start button?
Now all of a sudden, we got A and B. Now we have X and Y, and now L and R. What?
What is this, a math equation?
Yeah, it's nuts when you see that. But then once you start playing things like Street Fighter 2 Turbo, you're like, oh, now I get it. I get it. I need all these buttons.
Thank God there's buttons that are fucking here. But like Street Fighter.
And it was weird because we also not just went from like the 2-button layout, but a lot of people had seen the Genesis controller and thought, oh man, 3 buttons. That's the way to go. And then they had the 6-button variant, and then Nintendo's like, oh no, you've got the diamond shape, and then the shoulder buttons. And it was madness. And we're still seeing like the controller evolve and transition and change. And there was just so much different and new stuff then.
Yeah.
Like it was a cool evolution. Oh gosh. That's a train.
Oh my god, yeah. There's a train coming through.
Oh man.
It's called the Nintendo train.
All right, we're going to have to treat this like Final Fantasy VI, and we have to suplex the shit out of it. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to suplex the fuck out of that thing. I'm actually glad it made that noise just so I can make that reference.
That's funny.
While we're talking about SNES. Yeah. But it's like, now, Super Nintendo, one of the things that I will always say, which for me, it's my second favorite system of all time. But it's also got one of the best, hands down, one of the best RPG selections.
Yeah. No.
I know. I know that you might not be able to.
Never heard of it.
It's
what?
There's some really good ones on it. I think you might.
Like what? Like, give me an example. Jesus, this is ridiculous.
I mean, the best one on there would probably be Mystic Quest. No, fuck.
I like Mystic Quest.
Dude, I can't get into that.
You know, it's funny. It was. Yeah, you're right. It was a dumbed down, Final Fantasy-esque game, but it was a fucking action RPG-ish game, and I fucking sucked that stuff off for breakfast.
You were like, you went from breakfast. You were like, I sucked it down for breakfast. Like, so what kind of breakfast are you getting?
I'm just saying. But back then, I would take any RPG and embrace it, even if it sucked, because we didn't have that many.
But it was Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 2.
Oh, yes.
Final Fantasy 3.
Yeah, good lord.
Secret of Mana.
Yeah.
And
Secret of Evermore, for people who like that.
Dude,
I'm not a fan of Secret of Evermore.
How about those? Okay, we have to compromise. I don't give a fuck about Mystic Quest. I actually like Secret of Evermore.
My friend Andrew loved Secret of Evermore. I remember going over, and I was such a... I don't mind saying it back then. I was such a Japanese purist. I was like, what is this American...
this dirty Western RPG.
It's horrible. Yeah, I'm offended by this. And I kind of was. As a young guy. So
you didn't like Shadowrun, even being the big Dungeons
and Dragons? You know what? The funny thing is I didn't play Shadowrun until years later.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Wait, which one did you play?
Super Nintendo version. Yeah, for sure.
That's what
and I didn't play that till years. I would have loved that back then because that's when I was getting into. That's when we were playing Shadowrun, the RPG, the tabletop game, and Dungeons and Dragons. So,
and you should all check out our Dungeons and Dragons / role playing
episode.
Yeah, because that one's like awesome.
Yeah.
Cheap plug. But
yeah.
So RPGs.
Oh, but Seventh Saga. I'm just thinking.
Super Mario RPG.
Oh, good lord.
Breath of Fire 1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and 2. Yeah.
Woo! Breath of Fire 2, baby.
Phenomenal. It's kind of funny we never got any Dragon Warrior games, and we never got 5 or 6, and that's weird. Crying shame. But
dude, we had gotten Dragon Warrior, which is Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Super Nintendo were some of the best installments. Missed out on all of them. Like what the. What fuckery is that? I can't believe
they would have done well. They would have done well if they brought that out too.
It would have been fucking awesome. Oh, and everybody's gonna be crying, but Earthbound.
Yeah, obviously.
But it's weird because
what a great time Super Nintendo was.
We had those. There's a game that I will always consider RPG-ish, but it's a simulation really. But Harvest Moon.
Yeah, you're a big fan of that. I remember
big fan of Harvest Moon. That's where it started, and I still don't have a copy because I got rid of it when I was young.
Is it expensive? I bet it's expensive as fuck now, eh?
It's one of those games I'm like, well, I love the game enough that I want it in the box.
It would mean something to you, yeah.
And it's like $300-$400. I'm like,
forget it.
I can't get that. I'm like, I'll just emulate it. So
that's what you can do.
So we have those. Then again, Starfox, which was for a lot of people first taste of what 3D can be.
Yeah, that's it too. I remember when I had Starfox, and I was just like so blown away with it. And like I remember my friend Andrew was over, and I was just like, wow, this is the Super Nintendo. This is what it can do. We're seeing, it was polygons. Yeah,
it was so weird because you've got certain parts of it that are sprites, but then the rest of it is very crude and rudimentary polygons. But it was mind blowing. Like this was earth shattering for many people.
Like game changing, no pun intended. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really was a big deal. Yeah, that was a really big game. There's a lot of
fighting games around that time blew up too.
So so Street Fighter, I was playing it religiously in the arcades back then, and when I heard there was a Super Nintendo version and I saw the screenshots, I'm like, oh my god, because I had fighting. Yeah, give me some of that.
And I had it for breakfast. All these protein shakes. Oh yes. Oh.
And because I had Fighting Streets, which was Street Fighter 1 on the TurboGrafx, and it was Street Fighter 1, but it wasn't very great. I wanted it to be great. I aspired to it.
I love how nice you are about. You're like, it's not well, it's shit.
Well, no, but you know what? Back then, the graphics looked good. We wanted it to be good, but it wasn't a good game. We wanted it to be Street Fighter. It wasn't Street Fighter. It was a pale comparison even to the arcade game. But when I saw screenshots for like the Super Nintendo version of Street Fighter 2, I'm like, holy shit. I was spending like $3 a day lunch money playing Street Fighter at the arcades. I'm like, I can play it at home. And it was so funny. I went to my parents. I'm like, "Hey, I'll do anything at all for $100 to be able to
breakfast. I'll do any breakfast for you. Breakfast. And rubber fists.
I'm like, I'll mow the lawn. We had a pretty big lawn, and I remember mowing that fucking lawn all day long, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I've done the lawn. I was like such an excited kid. I was like 16 years old, and they're like, Like, okay, here you go. And what was so funny is that, my girlfriend at the time, she's the one who's like, oh yeah, I'll get a lift up and get it for you. Because I had some other stuff that I had to do. And I remember her coming back with the copy of Street Fighter 2, and I'm like, oh, and it was like, oh, wow. And I put it in, and it was just wonderful. I was doing combos, and we had every kid in the neighborhood over. I remember having like 10 or 15 people in my basement playing Street Fighter all day. It was like we had the arcade at home and was doing the over. And I didn't.
And that's why online play will never be as good as having an entire fucking crowd with you.
So yeah,
like,
you can jump up and go, "You like that, clown? You like that?
What now, bitch?"
Yeah, I suck my my pile driver didn't turn on. But that's what it was like. It was a lot of fun, and that's kind of how big some games were. Street Fighter was a big game on the Super Nintendo. I had more combat. We can't talk about every game. It's impossible to talk about every game. So if we miss some, don't worry. We know that.
Don't worry, because we're trying to cover all things Nintendo. Well, one thing I forgot to mention on NES and into this, just touch on it briefly, is my love for racing games started on NES with Rad Racer.
Yeah.
And then transition over to
Square,
Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then I got to have F-Zero.
Yeah.
And F-Zero is just, as a matter of fact, we'll be playing that with, we'll be playing the arcade version.
There's an arcade version of Portland, so we're really excited about
that right there, this is a bucket list thing for me. I'm just like, oh my god, finally, I'll be able to try out the arcade version, like in the arcade rather than just GameCube.
Yeah, I think Joe from GameSec, he's bringing his memory card, his like GameCube memory card, and you can just plug it in.
Yeah, it's
really.
Yeah, because I know for Mario Kart and for that you're able to save data. I don't know if it unlocks anything or whatever, but the idea that you can do that, that's fucking badass.
But it's so funny that game was all the way back then.
Mm-hmm.
That's like crazy.
Well, let's see. So we had Nintendo, Super Nintendo. We got to have the fucking Virtual Boy around the same time.
I never got one. I never experienced that.
My only real memory that I had of it up until like I got it when I was in my 20s was seeing it at Kmart on the
demo.
Yeah. Oh god.
I did the demo too.
It was on a jewelry stand, completely far away from the electronics department, and I go over to him like, what the fuck?
This is an elegant piece of hardware.
And I have my head inside this, and I'm playing Mario Tennis, and I'm like, okay, and then I can't see shit, and I'm like, that's stupid. And that was it.
Yeah.
Virtual Boy, everyone. Yay!
Yeah, no, I put my head in and I'm like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, but I wanted to. It was one of those things like Street Fighter 1. I wanted to like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I want to like it, but you can't.
I'm supposed. I'll say one thing. I like the controller. The controller was comfortable.
It was interesting. It was different. Yeah.
Two D-pads. That was weird.
Just a wild idea, and you could see that like Nintendo was thinking about virtual reality back then. It's kind of some interesting concepts.
It was way too early to attempt anything like that. The red and black graphics, you can't do that. And the best thing on it, Teleroboxer.
Yeah.
Teleroboxer is really good. That game I'll give it credit. Well, our Wario World, that's also really good.
Yeah. There's too many things to talk about. Like Mario Paint was like a game changer for me.
Fuck.
You know what I mean?
Man,
we can't talk about everything. Super Nintendo should be an episode unto its fucking self.
Future episode, Super Nintendo. Fuck it.
Yeah.
So let's see. So from Super Nintendo Virtual Boy,
we'll do an overview because we can't cover everything. It's impossible.
Nintendo 64.
Yeah. Wow.
Nintendo completely skipped 32-bit with Sega Saturn, PlayStation, 3DO. Went straight into 64 bits.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Oh, it sucked. No, I'm just kidding. It was a game changer because it's fucking shit.
It made me throw up.
It made me just. I quit gaming after that, and yeah, it was a weird time for video games. It was like, is this the direction we're going in? And I didn't know where Square was going at the time, and I was kind of.
They were going to PlayStation.
Well, yeah,
see ya.
But I was kind of nervy about that. I was like, oh, Final Fantasy on the Nintendo 64. Oh, it's going to come on PlayStation. But seeing Mario 64, I did an entire episode called Mario Memories where we talked about that first experience and what a game changer that was. It's like playing a Mario game in 3D was remarkable, and you'll never see that jump. And I think this is what we should need to talk about. Is from the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64, you'll never see the jump again from 2D to 3D. It was like, whoa! Well, I don't think you'll ever get that now. The only jump you can get now is like going to virtual reality.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
pretty much.
It's weird because back then, the jump between console generations was much more significant. When you got to see 8 to 16-bit, big change. 16 to 32/64, big change. From that to like Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, Xbox, big change. After that, subtle.
Yeah, it was. You're right. It was almost like measuring up to the arcade games at the time. And then all of a sudden, wait, we're better than arcade games. So what was your first experience with the N64?
The Nintendo 64, the Ultra 64, better name.
Yeah.
Way fucking better name. Oh my god, I wish they could call the NX the Ultra 64, and I'd be like, best fucking move ever. Go Nintendo, yeah. Well, seeing that, I remember I was following everything on it. I was like fucking like a hawk on all of it.
How old were you at this point?
I was in middle school. I think I was in... I mean, when they were talking about it, I'm pretty sure I was in 5th grade or 6th grade. Yeah. And when it came out, I was in 6th grade.
Wow.
But it came out, and that was one of the systems I got as soon as it came out. Not the day of, I got that Christmas.
Yeah.
That's what my...
And how it worked, yeah, for you back then.
Oh man, it was such a big deal. And like, I have fond memories of my mom with it, which is one of the reasons why I love the system, because she went to... I don't even know how many fucking stores, but the Nintendo 64 was sold out.
Oh, it was.
It was hard as fuck to find back then, and there was one thing that there was 2 things I wanted. I wanted Super Mario 64 and Wave Race.
Of course.
And she couldn't get Super Mario 64.
Oh, man.
She went everywhere.
That was the game that was sold out. That was the game that was hard to get that Christmas. I remember.
But there was a department store called Hills. Did you have them?
No Hills for us.
All right, so Hills was just like Kmart.
Yeah, I know Kmart. Yeah.
So Hills had one Nintendo 64 sitting way up on a shelf behind shit, and she had spotted, and like a hawk. My mom had spotted it, and she kept trying to get Super Mario 64. She couldn't find it, but she knew I liked Mortal Kombat. Yeah. So she just said, fuck it, I'll get a Mortal Kombat trilogy. Yeah. And she got me Wave Race 64, Mortal Kombat trilogy.
Wow.
The actual system. And she got me a little 19-inch TV.
Best Christmas ever?
Dude, it was weird because I remember she woke me up super fucking early. And I'm like half awake. And I had a cardboard cutout of Jim Carrey from The Mask.
Yeah.
And she had like the TV and stuff behind there. And it's all set up, like plugged in. Yeah. And I didn't have to unbox like a single fucking thing. And I come down and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, I can't tell what the fuck's going on. I'm like... And she's like, there it is. I'm like... And I'm not processing anything.
You're almost like the meme that...
Yeah, just like... Oh, wait, I need to...
That's what you're going to do.
I need to be Snake and just be like... and do one of those. But I was just like, that's cool. And my mom was just like... She wanted me to jump out of my skin and be like, holy fuck yeah! And just lose my mind. And...
That came later for you.
Oh, no, it did. And, like, I had to apologize to her later on. I was like, Mom, I'm sorry. I was just really tired. She was like, I just wanted you to be, like, super excited. I was like, no, you don't understand. This is all I'm doing. Yeah. And I ended up renting Super Mario 64.
Perfect.
Dude, I bought the strategy guide.
Yeah,
because I was so excited about it. It was actually the Game Fan one.
Yeah.
I had that.
Oh, yeah, I got that one. Yeah, I got some by Jones Mornay.
It's got all these fucking, like, screenshots and shit. And I remember going through because I was like, I can't wait to play this. I didn't even want it because it was a guide. I just wanted to look at pictures. And ended up playing that and just never looked back. I loved it. The controller, though, was stupid. So stupid. I hate the controller.
You know, yeah, we're not going to get into the debate. I thought the controller was goofy, but I put up with it. I'm like, hey, maybe Nintendo was smarter than me because their D-pad was smarter than me back in the day.
But it gave us an analog stick.
Yeah.
So that was new.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, what was it like for you at that time whenever you got it?
Oh, it was like, I remember like playing it for my parents. Like the big thing was, I brought it home, I set it up, and I played it, and I loved it. And I'd already seen it at Rob's place because he had rented a Japanese version of it, which was months earlier.
Got to rent an entire Japanese console?
Yeah, it was expensive, but his parents were really into gaming, and they appreciated their kids in the gaming. And I don't know, he was a very, very lucky guy. So I rode my bike over to Rob's place back then, and I saw this playing. I'm like, oh my god! And I just remember going, I've got to get this. Without a question. And that's what sold me on it when I saw it playing. I was like, holy shit.
Well, what games were you guys playing?
Well, no, at the time, when he rented the Japanese version, it was the All he had was Mario 64, and that's all we needed.
That's all you needed.
That's pretty, to be absolutely honest, yeah, Wave Race. So I played Mario 64, and it was incredible times. And I'll never forget that me and Rob and a friend of ours walked up in the snow to rent Wave Race. And I got Wave Race, and I came back. I'll never forget it. I was on a night, and I used to smoke back then, and I'm smoking cigarettes, and I'm drinking beer, and all my family's in bed, and I'm playing Wave Race, and I'm like, this is the best time of my life.
Dude, the water.
And it was.
The water.
The water physics were something else.
That was the most fucking amazing shit, just seeing that. Cause
I know.
Me and my friends always made jokes of, man, that makes me thirsty.
Yeah.
So damn thirsty, because it looked like water. Like legitimate water, reacted like water. It was like, holy shit, this is next generation stuff. Just that leap.
Yeah, it was that leap. Yeah. So yeah, it was the 3D was really good and stuff like that. What upset me about the N64, there was not a lot of RPGs.
No.
What was that goddamn Quest game? What the fuck is that game?
Yeah, there's three that I can think of. The Adian, I always forget how you say it. Adian Chronicles, Quest 64, but the one that was worth a damn, Paper Mario. Paper Mario is actually awesome.
Yes. You know, like that got high praise back then, and I never played it back then. I played the GameCube version years later.
The GameCube one is the best one.
Good. I'm glad then, because I thought I missed out on something on the N64 all these years later.
4 controller ports. That was new.
That was a big deal. You know, that's a big deal. You know something funny? I've often talked about this. Is that I remember when me and my Rob and another friend of mine, we went to rent Smash Brothers, and we're like, oh wow, gaming. I was completely disappointed by that game. I was like, oh, this is it. Wow, I'm going to go back to playing Street Fighter.
Think about like the fighting games that you and me grew up on, and then when you play that,
it felt like one of those. What was that big All-Star game that came on the PlayStation? You know,
PlayStation All-Star
fighting
Royale,
thing.
Some shit.
Yeah. Well, like I thought to myself that there was legitimate fighting games like Street Fighter and blah blah blah, and I thought this was going to be a novelty thing. I didn't know that Smash Brothers would go on to become such a big phenomenon. Well, but you didn't see it back then.
It's all fan service, and that game, I love the idea of all those characters being in it. But like you, I guess more of a purist of fighting games.
Yeah.
I want my 2D and 3D fighters like Soul Calibur and Tekken for 3D, and then I want my 2D stuff like Guilty Gear and Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. Yeah. So that's what I want. But most people are like, that's a party game. Fuck you.
Yeah, so like I'm just trying to because we got so much to get through. Shadows of the Empire, played that fucking amazing game. Turok was really good back then.
I mean, we went from Super Star Wars into Shadows of the Empire. That game was mind blowing. Was also even showcased on the box. Of the system, and you didn't see that stuff all that often, but seeing that little CG version of the Stormtrooper and shit, and Dash Rendar being a fucking
Rendar, holy
dude,
crap.
Dash needs to be in a movie. I still swear by that every day. GoldenEye, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Banjo and Kazooie. There's just F-Zero X, which is one of the best video game soundtracks in the entire world. The fact that they got Resident Evil 2 with both discs onto a cartridge, complete with all the CG, just that blew my mind. A lot of good shit.
A lot of good stuff on there, and then all of a sudden it was time to get into the GameCube.
Yeah.
So they announced the GameCube, and that was a really, really big deal at the time. And the one thing I can say about the GameCube is it was a cube. It was cool. You could carry it around with you. That's what got me. And I remember seeing all the E3 footage for the next Mario Sunshine and the next Zelda and all the controversies there with his new look
people were flipping the fuck out whenever they had seen that, which everybody now knows as Toon Link, but back then people were like wanting Nintendo. Everybody at Nintendo heads on pikes. That's all the fuck that they wanted to do. They're like, you can't do that to the Link.
Yeah, because they're kind of coming off Ocarina of Time at that point. Yeah. We didn't even mention Ocarina of Time. Jesus.
People are going to be fucking holding guns to our heads, like, say it, bring up Majora's Mask, and it's also one of AlphaOmegaSin's all-time favorite Legend of Zelda games. Just saying. Yeah, I love that game.
Yeah, just so much. We can't mention every game. It's not gonna happen.
It's hard to.
It's not. We're just doing an overview.
Don't worry. We'll have specific videos and podcast episodes.
Yeah, so like the GameCube came out. How did you think of it? Were you happy with it?
The GameCube, I got to try it out at Media Play with my two best friends, Sean and Jarrett. And the first thing I got to play, Luigi's Mansion.
Fantastic game.
And Luigi's Mansion actually got a lot of shit because it wasn't Super Mario 64 2. And I was like, you know what? Fuck all of you, because this game's really fun. Luigi's getting his own game that doesn't suck. by the way. And really good ass game. Dark Moon's also really good.
The only problem is it was super short, but anyways.
Yeah, it's like, love that game. I played Wave Race Blue Storm, and then playing Super Mario Sunshine, even though, I don't think it's one of the best Super Mario games, it was still very good.
I love the game. Yeah. Well, that's a conversation. We'll do a good episode of Mario games one time.
What did you think of the controller?
Because
it was a big change from the 64.
You know what? Like, the N64 is kind of weird, and this was kind of weird too. It was just kind of giving me a weird vibe. I was just like, and at this point we're playing the PlayStation. So I was playing like fighting games on the PlayStation. I love the play. So it was like, oh, okay, it felt like a very novelty toy-ish controller. Yeah. I didn't mind it, but it wasn't ideal for fighting games or anything like that. It was okay-ish, and I dealt with it. It's not one of my all-time loving. I go, oh, I love the GameCube controller. I never did. Did you?
The controller, like the analog sticks, I liked a whole bunch on it. Yeah. And I remembered the one thing that I hated about it was the D-pad is really tiny.
That's what I was talking about for fighting games.
Dude, it's so microscopic. I always want to import that Hori Super Nintendo
controller.
controller.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
They had the Resident Evil Remake and Resident Evil 0, and you have to play those with a D-pad. If you try playing it with the analog stick, I'd rather just throw the fucking system at a wall. Yeah. But, I always want it for those, but... other standout titles that use that analog stick real well, Super Monkey Ball.
Yeah.
Super Monkey Ball is the shit. Really good series, by the way. The first two are by far the best. I always consider the first one to be a little bit better, but both.
But yeah, like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, I really enjoyed on that machine.
Oh, Skies of Arcadia Legends.
Yeah, well, when it got ported over, and extra character and all of that, and
extra characters,
faster load times,
new storylines. Yeah. Phantasy Star Online.
Jesus, we can't mention every game. It's impossible.
How about the fact that we were seeing Sega games on Nintendo for the first time?
That was crazy. I remember seeing all the footage for like Phantasy Star Online with the new characters. I'm like, oh my god, episodes 1 and 2.
Oh, dude, it was
like crazy.
It was unreal. For us growing up throughout all those generations, and then seeing the Sega logo show up on there, seeing like Sonic the Hedgehog games being like Sonic Adventure games on there, Crazy Taxi, Skies of Arcadia.
Yeah, and that was the first time that a Nintendo machine had gone online and had a broadband adapter for anybody who had Phantasy Star.
For a whopping one game.
Yeah,
and that was it.
Actually, the other game was another Phantasy Star Online game, that card battle.
Phantasy Star Episode 3.
Yeah.
Everybody forgets about that poor thing.
Oh, yeah, I never really liked it back in the day either. But I wanted to, but didn't.
Like, very good system. Yes, we are trying to go and burn through some of
the rest of it. So
there's just so much.
There's so much. So
we will make console-specific podcast episodes. We have to.
We have to. So I overall like the GameCube, but it got a bit of a bad rap. Everybody's like, oh my god, Nintendo's going to fail. They're going to be out of the hardware business.
And Game Boy Advance was out at that time, which was a 32-bit jump from the 8-bit Game Boy Color, which was amazing at the time.
Yeah, the handhelds is another thing into itself.
We could have a handheld episode.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Also, if everybody likes these ideas, it's always nice to know.
Yeah, let us know. Yes. For sure. Let us know. So, I like the GameCube, and I don't give a shit what anybody says. I enjoyed it.
The GameCube's actually getting a lot more love now. Back then, it was getting panned. People shit all over it and made fun of it. They were like, why would you want that when you could have the fucking PS2? And admittedly, PS2 is much better. And everybody can be like, no, I'm sorry, PS2 is just fucking better.
Well, yeah, it was just different. Yeah. It's just a different alternative, right? But because it was Nintendo, it was like it's failing, it's not doing well, but it's still doing well.
Everybody's been announcing the death rattle of Nintendo since Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
Man, look at that.
They don't have Final Fantasy. They're finished. Oh, they don't have enough third parties. They're finished.
Oh, they're so dead, everybody. So sad.
And how many generations of consoles later?
Exactly. Here, well, okay, so we got the GameCube, and then we jump right on into one of their all-time best-selling systems, the Nintendo Wii.
Wii, yeah. And I lined up at midnight to pick up mine, and I didn't get it till like I think 10 in the morning. Because I went to Best Buy and it was just a huge line. That's the first time that I saw a big hype for video game consoles. I was like, I'll get up at 3 in the morning, go down to Best Buy, and I'll be first in the line. Get there, there's like 40 people in the line. I'm like, what? And then they came out and said, oh yeah, we only have this many consoles, like 35. I ran to EB Games, I got to EB Games. I had to wait all night till 11 in the morning to pick up my Wii. And you know what I mean? And I got home with Twilight Princess and all that. And I had to go to work right afterwards. So I picked that up, didn't sleep, went to work, came home, and I put it in. And my initial reaction, just please understand, was, oh, the graphics are okay. Like,
It was a GameCube game. That much that we always have to remember.
Yeah, I was a little it was the first Nintendo console where I was underwhelmed. Usually I went, whoa. But I was like, oh, okay. It didn't move me. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't moved. You know what I mean? I wasn't moved. So that was a bit.
But did you like the game?
Did I like Twilight Princess?
Yeah.
I didn't mind it. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I just really wanted high definition graphics.
Was that the only game that you got with it?
No, I'm just. Oh God, I can't even remember now. What were some of the other launch games at the time?
Whenever it first came out, I'm drawing a hardcore fucking blank.
So am I. Yeah, we've been talking so much here. Like,
because
we don't have our consoles and everything around us.
Yeah. Well, here for me, whenever I'd gotten it, mine was stolen from a prostitute.
What?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
I'm dead serious. My Nintendo Wii and the games I got with it and the controllers was stolen from a prostitute.
Okay, obviously you have to. This is crazy. Okay. Wow.
So at the time I was living in a super duper really bad neighborhood. Story of my life. So one of the dudes that lived in the same house as me started banging this chick that was actually a prostitute through Craigslist.
Oh my God.
And he had her staying in his room for a little bit. He found
in your house.
Yeah.
Oh,
we had no idea about all this shit. We knew that he was having her stay and shit, but she started like living there, and he found out about her prostituting herself on Craigslist because he got to see like all the ads and shit that she was putting out and responding to on his computer. So he kicked her out, and then he kept like her valuable stuff. And then he had like the Nintendo Wii, a bunch of games and shit. He didn't give a fuck about any of that. And it was like, do you want all this stuff? And I was like, yes, I do. And it was like, good shit.
Was it when it first came out? Holy jeez, yeah.
So I got Nintendo, and people were like, man, Alpha, you're fucked up. It's a free game console. I don't fucking know this prostitute. Do you think I give a shit? No. I have a free console. Yeah. Bam! Yeah. Save myself hundreds of dollars.
She wasn't having sex with the console, you know what I mean?
No, if she was, you just go. There we go, nice and clean. Just give it a shot. That's
so when you look back on the Wii, like, what are your thoughts about it?
I hated the controller. Yeah. I still hate the controller because the only good thing about the controller is for shooters. Yeah. Arcade shooters, like House of the Dead and shit, that's fucking phenomenal. But other than that, I think the system's underappreciated because everybody's like, oh, it's got all this garbage and terrible games on it. Yet I've got a big fucking library of like almost 70 games. I'm like, there's lots of quality on there. Zack and Wiki, whatever you want to go and call them. That was actually one of the earliest games on it.
Yeah. Was that by Capcom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Like Mario Galaxy and
Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes.
Yeah.
When Konami wasn't a complete and utter fucking breakfast eating, protein shake sucking down fuck. So there's that.
Oh, Twin Snakes, that was on GameCube.
Yeah.
Oh,
fuck yeah.
I'm like, was there a version in the Wii? I'm like, dude, my God.
Absolutely right. Okay, well, let's see. How about this? Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles and Darkside Chronicles.
Yeah.
So there was that. There was another Paper Mario game on
What was that goddamn game where you were a surgeon?
Oh, Trauma Center.
That was the best.
Yeah.
Trauma Center was
Trauma Center is the fucking shit. Yeah. If you get one of the best multiplayer games, Trauma Team.
Oh, interesting.
Trauma Team, you get a bunch of people together and you're all surgeons, and it's even worse because imagine Surgeon Simulator, but just not with the fucking all stupid ass controls where you're like flopping about and shit. It doesn't have nearly as good music though.
Yeah.
But the Nintendo Wii, the main thing that sold it for everybody was Wii Sports.
Yeah, for sure.
Bowling!
Yeah, bowling, yeah, baseball, yeah. Or, anything like that. It was a novelty. It was a very novelty kind of controller. After a while, I was just like, I just want to play... like that. I was kind of lazy.
Once they brought out like the Pro controller and all that shit, it was like, hey, you can play them. And one of the biggest selling points, the Virtual Console.
Yeah, that was good.
The fuck out. We were getting TurboGrafx games, and for a lot of people, this was their first time experiencing TurboGrafx, and it was all thanks to that system. And now we're just getting back into them because of the Wii U.
Yeah, and that said, so I'm not a humongous fan of the Wii. I don't hate it. It's part of Nintendo's history. I liked a lot of games on there. As I say, Mario Galaxy just was a game that was wonderful stuff. But after we got off that, and then also we get into the Wii U, and I brought it home, and I like the Wii U, and I still do. I just don't think there's enough third-party games, obviously.
There's like zero.
Yeah. I'm trying to be nice.
Early on, they had a decent amount of third-party offerings, and the thing is, as we've seen with like the past couple generations with Nintendo, it's essentially been like, you get a Nintendo system and play Nintendo games.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that because Nintendo puts out a lot of really good quality games.
Yeah.
That's the truth. And with the Wii U, again, we had like another different controller. Nintendo 64, a very different and strange controller. The Wii, different kind of controller. Wii U, we have a fucking tablet and all that shit on there. And, the first time I got to go and boot that up, it was kind of odd, but I found myself actually into it. I'm like, this is pretty cool. Unnecessary in a lot of regards, with the exception of Super Mario Maker, but still good controller.
Yeah,
battery life.
I kind of like. I like the novelty of the controller. I just was hoping that we get more use out of it. Yeah. And also, my big problem with the controller is that it doesn't last very long.
No.
I'm always plugging it in. It's like, oh my god, it's dying again.
Dude, mine's plugged in all the time.
All the time. Mine too, all the time.
One thing I love about the Wii U, which this should have been with the Nintendo Wii, and one of the things I've actually hated about the system was that the Wii should have been high def. It should have been. One of the best, to even get to fucking mention it, some of my all-time favorite Super Mario games are the Super Mario Galaxy games.
Yeah.
They are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And the Wii had those in spades. Fucking great games.
Yeah.
And then, the only time I got to see those in high def was thanks to the Dolphin emulator. Then, when you get to see Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U, holy shit. Just seeing that, it's like night and day. Everything's so lush and beautiful.
Yeah, because we were in the time of high definition games, and it's not unreasonable to say, I wish I was on high def, but it's like, okay, that's going to be the way it's going to be. I think we'll see Mario Galaxy and stuff like that on future handhelds for Nintendo.
Well, I can imagine that. I'm surprised that they didn't decide to bundle Galaxy 1 and 2 as like the Galaxy Duo or some shit, and then put that in HD, kind of like with Wind Waker, because man, that'd be fucking great.
It'd be cool if they got all the 3D Mario games and updated them. So it's like Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, Galaxy 1 and 2.
They shut down Super Mario 64 HD, because that was hurting their sales.
Yeah,
fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
But with the Wii U, is there any other standout titles right now that you're playing or have played?
Oh, Wii U. Mario. Wii U. Yeah, I got Mario Kart is one of my favorite games of that.
Fuck yeah! Oh my god, Mario Kart 8.
Oh my
dude,
god,
one of the best damn Mario Kart games. I fucking love that.
It's my favorite Mario Kart game of all time. I gave it Game of the Year last year. I loved it. I thought it was the best.
Mario Kart 8 from the track design, and that's another game where seeing that graphically, I can say goes toe to toe with the stuff that's being put out right now.
Yeah,
I think it's so fucking nice.
They know what they're doing with their capabilities.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and all that. So yeah, what do you think for Wii U? Like Mario Maker's really good. What else?
New Super Mario Brothers U. That was one of the launch.
I didn't mind that. It was fun.
Dude, it was. It's okay. I actually like New Super Mario Brothers on the DS.
Yeah,
and then going.
It had tighter controls. That's one thing it really had.
It was just cool. Having like little wall slides, which made me think of Mega Man X a lot of times, which I always dig that. But again, it was another high definition Super Mario Brothers game, and I cannot get enough of anything like that. But the Wii U overall, I played the shit out of. Getting Bayonetta 2.
Oh, yeah, Bayonetta 2 was fun.
And the thing is, Bayonetta 1 being packaged in, you can't fucking go wrong with that. Wind Waker HD is on there.
That's a beautiful game. I mean, like...
And that's not just a bullshit fucking, it's an HD, high def, Wind Waker, No, this shit looks phenomenal, man. It's so goddamn fantastic.
Wind Waker was already a great game, so we upping the graphics, you're like, oh my god, it's like, this takes it to another level. It's like a different game, but it's just the same game. It does.
If you see, like, any of those things where it's like, okay, look at the same game, and here's how it looks on the GameCube, and here's how it looks on here, night and day.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's absolutely crazy.
It's such a good thing, and we have the next Legend of Zelda that's going to be coming out, which I can't wait for.
Yeah. So that's it. We'll end the podcast. It's like, is it going to be the NX? What's going to bring? Is it going to bring the next Zelda game? Is it going to go directly to that?
Is it going to be a console or a handheld?
I think we both kind of maybe agree. It's going to be a little combination of both. I think that. Is that your thoughts?
I keep on thinking that it's going to be something drastically different because Nintendo is all about doing that kind of shit. Whether or not it's going to be more powerful than like the PS4 or the Xbox One,
nobody knows.
Yeah,
no, it's still at this point rumors.
But the rumor mill is like churning out of fucking control. I can say this: when it comes to Nintendo, regardless of if you like them or not, you're always paying attention.
Yeah. And they're not going out of business anytime soon. They'll be around for a long time.
And
they got a treasure trove of money. Like it's huge money.
And they have name recognition.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Wii Metroid Prime games, really awesome.
Oh yeah. Like, don't worry, we've gotten everything, so it's okay.
And then there's with right now the DS and 3DS, awesome systems.
Yeah,
again.
very good. I really like the new 3DS and stuff like that.
3DS is awesome.
The new 3D is unbelievable.
The DS, my all-time favorite handheld.
It's a good one. It's a really, really good one.
Great RPGs.
So yeah, that's our end of our live podcast, and we'll end it this way. So until next time,
game the fuck on.